I'm going to say something if I can, Volodymyr. I want to thank you and the people of Ukraine for the incredible honour that you've done me, which, as I say, is, I think, really a recognition of the efforts of the UK. And I want to remind you, Volodymyr, that when you rang me at 4 o'clock in the morning on that grim day in February, and you told me the news that we had been dreading, that Putin had been so insane as to invade a sovereign European country, I told you then that we were shoulder to shoulder with you, and that is as true today as it was in that horrific moment. And I can also tell you that about an hour later, when we met in the high security room in Downing Street to try to understand what was happening, we were filled with foreboding, because we just did not see how this innocent and beautiful country could repel an attack by more than 100 battalion tactical groups when the suffering and the casualties would be so immense. But you did. And like one of those indomitable Ukrainian boxers for which this country is justly famous, you came off the ropes and you hit him with an uppercut that sent Putin's armies reeling from Kiev, and a hook to drive him from Kharkiv, and it became ever clearer to the world that he had fatally underestimated the grit and the will and, above all, the price that you were willing to pay to defend the country you love. And I salute the heroic dead. I salute the families of the bereaved and the injured, the emergency services who've been called time after time to the scenes of Putin's atrocities. And I salute the bravery of the ordinary people of Ukraine who have just got on with their lives. The teachers, the students, the children. In our country today, young people are getting their grades for their exams, and of course it's been a tough time for them because we've all had to go through with a pandemic. But I ask us all to think of the children of Ukraine, 2/3 of whom have been driven from their homes. 2/3. And who have seen nearly 1/5 of their schools destroyed or damaged. And yet, working by candlelight or in makeshift classrooms, 7,500 of them have achieved the highest possible grades. And I think it's our collective mission to ensure that those brilliant students grow up to use their qualifications to achieve their dreams in a peaceful, prosperous, and independent Ukraine. And I believe that they will, because out of the ashes of your towns and cities, out of the monstrous scars that are being left by Putin's missiles, something beautiful is blooming, and it's a flower that the whole world can see and admire. And that is the unconquerable will of the Ukrainians to resist. And that is what Putin failed to understand. He simply had no idea how much Ukrainians love this extraordinary country with its rich black soil and magical golden domes, how much they treasure the life and the bustle and the freedom and the Eurovision Song Contest winning cultural dynamism of Ukraine. And just as he fatally underestimated Ukraine, he also underestimated the price the world was willing to pay to support Ukraine. We have and we will, and even though we must accept that after 6 months of war, the price is indeed a high price. And I've come from the United Kingdom, where we're battling inflation that is being driven by the spike in energy prices that is caused by Putin's war, and we face strikes being driven by trade unions' bosses who have the ruinous belief that the best way to tackle soaring energy prices is with ever higher wages, when that is, of course, simply to pour petrol on the flames. And of course, we're doing everything we can to deal with the pressures people face in their cost of living and to help people through the difficult months ahead. And that's why, given what's happening across the world, Volodymyr, it's so important for you to know now that we in Britain have the strength and the patience to get through these economic difficulties that have been so recklessly driven and exacerbated by the folly and malevolence of one man, Vladimir Putin. And like every other European country, we're of course working to end our dependence on Russian hydrocarbons. We're building those new nuclear power stations, one a year rather than one every 10 years, tens of gigawatts of new wind farms. And I can tell you that we in the UK will not for 1 second give in to Putin's economic blackmail. Because the people of my country can see with complete clarity what is at stake in Ukraine today. Yes, of course, it's about you and your right to live in peace and freedom. And frankly, that on its own is enough. But it's also about all of us who believe in the principles of freedom and democracy. And here today in Ukraine, I believe that history is at a turning point. After decades in which democracy has been on the defensive, on the back foot, we have an opportunity to join you in saying no to tyranny, saying no to those who would stifle Ukrainian liberty and independence, and we will. And that is why Ukraine will win. And we also know that if we're paying in our energy bills for the evils of Vladimir Putin, the people of Ukraine are paying in their blood. And that's why we know we must stay the course. Because if Putin were to succeed, then no country on Russia's perimeter would be safe, and if Putin succeeds, it would be a green light to every autocrat in the world, a signal that borders can be changed by force. And, Volodymyr, that's why the British House of Commons, all parties, stood as one to applaud you and to support the military, diplomatic, and economic support that we are giving to Ukraine. And I'm proud that we've already supplied more arms than any other European country, including 6,900 anti-tank missiles, 5,000 of the NLAWs, 120 armored vehicles, Starstreak anti-aircraft missiles, anti-ship missiles, and now, of course, the MLRS. And today I can tell you that more artillery, more ammunition is on its way, and 2,000 UAVs. We're also training 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers alongside our allies. And the other day I was at Catterick in Yorkshire, and I met 400 of your recruits that we are helping to train. And these were people from all walks of life, people who weren't soldiers yet, who'd never been to battle before. But the grim reality was that just in a few weeks from now, they are heading to that front line. And when I listened to their cheerfulness and their courage, I knew that Ukraine will win. And in offering this kind of training and equipment, I also want to applaud our friends and allies around the world. In the EU, the Poles, the Baltic countries, the Dutch, the Czechs, the French, the Germans, the Italians, they've been steadfast. But at this juncture, it would be right to pay a special tribute to the outstanding global leadership of the United States of America. And let me be clear, I believe the commitment by the United States of $40 billion in military support, I think about $59 billion all told, has been indispensable to Ukraine's success. And I thank Joe Biden and his team for what they've been doing. And to all our friends, I simply say this: we must keep going. We must show, as friends of Ukraine, that we have the same strategic endurance as the people of Ukraine. We know that the coming winter will be tough and that Putin will manipulate Russian energy supplies to try to torment households across Europe. And our first test as friends of Ukraine will be to face down and endure that pressure, to help consumers, but also to build up our own supplies. And I believe that as we come through this winter, our position will strengthen. And with every week, a month that goes by, Putin's position will weaken and his leverage will diminish. And that's why now we must continue and intensify our support for Ukraine. The HIMARS, the MLRS, the systems that are proving so effective in Ukrainian hands. We can't afford for one moment to relax the sanctions on Putin. We've got to keep up the financial and economic support for Ukraine. And every day around the world, we must fight Putin's lies, because it's his war that's pushing up the price of food and oil and gas, and not Western sanctions. And we must fight any creeping attempt to normalize relations with Putin, because it's becoming ever clearer that thanks to the sacrifice and the bravery of the people of Ukraine, the vaunted Russian offensive in the Donbass is failing. And therefore, this is exactly the moment for your friends to help you strike the Russians just as they begin to wobble. We know that Putin's troops are towering, that his losses are colossal and his supply lines are vulnerable. We can see how tiny his recent advances have become and how huge the cost in Russian blood and Russian treasure has been, tragically, in the tears of Russian mothers. And we also know that this is not the time to advance some flimsy plan for negotiation with someone who is simply not interested. You can't negotiate with a bear while it's eating your leg, and you can't negotiate with a street robber who has pinned you to the floor. And we don't need to worry, by the way, about humiliating Putin any more than we need to worry about humiliating a bear or a street robber. All that matters is restoring and preserving the sovereign integrity of Ukraine. And on this anniversary, let's remember that glorious day, 31 years ago, when on an 84% turnout, 92% supported independence. Den Zalezhny. That's what it is. And this is now a war for that independence. And history teaches us that when a country has a language, an identity, a pride, a love of its traditions, a patriotic feeling that simply grows with every month and year that passes, when a country of that kind is engaged in a war for its very existence, I tell you, my friends, that war is only going to end one way. Ukraine will win, and Britain will be by your side. You have reminded us of values that the world thought it had forgotten. You've reminded us that freedom and democracy are worth fighting for. I'm proud to call myself a friend of Ukraine. I thank you for the honor that you've done me today, and you can count on me and my country in the years ahead. Thank you all very much, and Slava Ukraini.